Hello, fellow Toastmasters.
Hello.
Hello. I have had psoriasis my entire life. I remember being in elementary school and my mom would sit me on the floor and scratch at all the little things on my head and apply this potion that she'd gotten from the doctor that I am quite certain is illegal in the state of California now. As I got older, I of course became responsible for managing my own autoimmune disease, and I would ask every doctor and every dermatologist that I saw whether or not there was anything that I could do to prevent it, to stop the flare-ups from happening. And every single doctor that I asked said, no. There is no connection between the food that you eat and psoriasis. So you can imagine my surprise 2 years ago when I was listening to an online seminar and Dr. Alessio Fasano presented that there is a clear correlation between gluten consumption and autoimmune disease. Now, as a dietitian, I'm quite clear that there is a link between gluten and celiac disease, which is also an autoimmune disease of the intestines. But his statement was much broader than that. What he actually said was that there is a correlation between gluten consumption and all autoimmune diseases. Sometimes the correlation is stronger and sometimes it's a bit weaker. This was, of course, shocking to me. I knew that gluten-free was a trend, right? We'd heard about it, but during my entire master's program in nutrition, I had been told that the only people who needed to avoid gluten were people who have celiac disease, and that for everybody else, it was just a trend and it would fade away like all the others. So I had to find out for myself, and I started researching what is the connection between gluten and autoimmune disease, and if there is a connection, what's the actual mechanism? Turns out that Dr. Fasano is a pediatric gastroenterologist and researcher at Massachusetts General Hospital. And he is the leading authority on what happens when you eat gluten. So to help you understand a little bit about where this connection comes from, think of your intestines as being like a long tube made out of bricks, where the bricks are the cells of your intestines, and in between those bricks are these membranes called tight junctions. And they're kind of like the mortar of your intestine cells. They hold the tube together so that things cannot get through that are not supposed to. Turns out that no human can digest gluten completely. We can break it apart a little bit, but we can't digest it all the way. And when these pieces of gluten called gliadin, you don't need to remember that word, but just so you know that it has a technical term, hits the small intestine releases a substance that Dr. Fasano discovered, and he named that substance zonulin. I have no idea why. It doesn't seem to describe what it does at all, but that's what he called it. So when gliadin hits the small intestine, your intestinal cells release zonulin. They then attach back onto the cells that just released them, and that creates signaling that loosens the tight junctions. The cells in your intestines actually separate from each other. This, by the way, is exactly what leaky gut is. If you have heard that term leaky gut and you wondered, that's what it is. It is when those intestinal cells that are supposed to provide that barrier to things that go through your digestive system, things you can't digest, or chemicals in your food, or chemicals in your water, medications that you take, that they can't get through into your bloodstream. So when you eat gluten, and by the way, this happens to everyone, not just people with autoimmune disease. So when you eat gluten, zonulin gets released and these tight junctions relax. And that is a problem for several reasons. But the three main ones are, the first one, toxins can now get in directly to your bloodstream. Because the barrier that's there, that wall that is supposed to keep those toxins from getting in, now don't have to go through that barrier. They can pass through those relaxed tight junctions and go directly into your bloodstream. Makes it a lot harder to detox, right? It puts extra strain on your liver and your body's inherent detoxification processes. The second thing is that gluten itself, these gliadin fractions, can also actually pass into the bloodstream directly. And this is a problem because these gliadin fractions have been shown to have opioid-like activity within the body. So there is a direct correlation between gluten consumption and anxiety, depression, and headaches, as well as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's, because it has this opioid-like effect within the brain. The third thing that happens is that bacteria, which live in our intestines and are our friends, right? We've heard a lot about the microbiome and the microbiota and how good it is for us. Those bacteria can also now pass through into your bloodstream. And this is a problem because your immune system freaks out. It says, holy moly, where is this bacteria coming from? I need to do something about it. And you can end up with inflammation simply from these bacteria getting into your bloodstream through these channels, these relaxed tight junctions that the gluten creates. Now, there's lots of discussion about why we're seeing gluten sensitivity being more common now than it used to be, why more and more people seem to be reacting to gluten whenever they eat it. And I won't give you all the details, partially because I don't have enough time to do that. But you should know that for everyone, the tight junctions relax. The older you are, the more they relax. The more gluten you eat, the more relaxed they are. And if you have susceptibility to certain conditions like autoimmune disease, which I have, and cancer, you are more likely to release more zonulin than other people, which means those gaps get really big. Now, I'm not saying that gluten-free eating should be the new norm for everybody. That would be a bit presumptuous on my part. But what I would tell you is that if you have symptoms that nobody else seems to explain, whether it's in your GI tract, like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, unexplained headaches, unexplained infertility or anemia, or if you've been told that your bones are thinning, as in osteoporosis, I recommend taking gluten out of your diet for 3 weeks. See how you feel. And then add it back in, and again, see how you feel. And only in that moment will you know, after you've taken it out and given your body a chance to reset, and adding it back in, will you know whether or not you can consider gluten-free eating to be a fading trend that you don't need to think about, or whether or not it should be the new norm for you. Thank you.